Hey there everyone, it's Jenna. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're gonna be giving our dining room space a makeover. And if you missed it, I did a total living room makeover on the front portion of this room because the space that we're making over is basically a big rectangular space and it's the first room you see when you walk through our front door. So I already did the living room portion and now we're gonna do the dining room portion. And even though they're part of the same space, I still want them to be their own separate defined areas, but still talk to each other. So in our living room, we used a lot of organic materials, an earthy color palette, and just a really relaxed vibe. So that's what I want to carry over into the dining space. So I'm really excited to share how it turned out with you all. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay, so this was the space that we were starting with, and as you can see, it's not a super large space that we had to work with, but I really loved the tall ceilings in here, and I liked this black light fixture that was already here and how it tied into the other black accents that we had in our living room, like the shelves and curtain hardware. So I figured the best way to make use of a small dining space would be to incorporate a dining bench. And benches are great for tight areas because the furniture gets to be pushed up against the wall as opposed to floating in the center of the room. And we did this in our last house, and I loved how cozy and aesthetic it made our dining area feel. And we actually brought our old bench cushions with us on the off chance that they would fit in this house, and we got really lucky with the dimensions since I wasn't able to measure before we moved in and we were just kind of guessing. But once we knew that the measurements would work out, Mike got to work with making the dining benches, and he actually built the one in our last house, and we have a more in-depth tutorial on that build, so I will link that here. But as most of you know, this house is a rental, so we won't be attaching these to the walls or anything like that. They're basically just big benches that we can move and take with us later on. So he built the bench frame using 2x4s and then added 1/2-inch plywood on the top and the sides of the bench. And he also added some molding pieces for a little decorative shaker detail. Overall, just a super basic design that works for now. And we also attached these little molding pieces to the edge of the plywood for a more seamless and professional look. Okay, so here are what the benches look like before paint, and Mike did such a great job. It was awesome of him to do this amidst him starting a new job and so quickly after we moved in. So he actually made the fronts like this really beautiful kind of like shaker detail, and if you look around the back, there's actually nothing here. So we didn't want to waste wood or spend money on anything that wouldn't be seen. So these are going to be up against the wall and on the sides, and then we're going to put these little rubber stoppers here and on the bottom just so it won't ruin the floor or the walls or anything like that. And this is also the corner piece that won't be seen. So I'm just going to paint the tops and then the side here. And what I'm going to do is use 1 coat of primer because last time I did this, I did not use a primer and I ended up having to use 2 gallons of this furniture paint, and this stuff is really expensive. So this time I'm smart. I bought the cheaper primer, and then hopefully we'll do 1 coat of this and 2 coats of that, and it'll look really nice. This is Jour. It's a beautiful, like bright, crisp trim white. It's what we had in the old place and I loved it. So I'm going to get to painting these and hopefully style them later on today. Okay, so now that everything is all painted, we wanted to add the rubber feet, and I just found these at HomeGoods, but they sell similar ones on Amazon, and then we just attached them all over the backs and bottoms of the bench so it wouldn't slide or rub against the walls. And then it was finally time to bring the benches into the space, and honestly, we got so lucky with these measurements because our old bench cushions determined the dimensions of the benches, and they fit in here perfectly. It kind of looks like we made it custom for this space. So then it was time to bring in the cushions, and these we got custom made by a local upholsterer back in Charlotte, and we decided to get a faux leather that was meant for the outdoors so that it would be super durable and we could use them for years to come. So I'm really glad we chose to move them with us and reuse them in this space. So next it was time to bring in our dining table, and I love this dining table. It's from Pottery Barn, and what I love about it is that it looks like an antique table. The top has that distressed look to it, and I love the trestle detail at the bottom. I was actually looking at real antique tables the other day out of curiosity, and these have a super similar look with that distressed top and trestle detail at the bottom, but it was more than twice the price. So we were able to find ours at a great discount at the outlet, so I decided to stick with the one that we had. Next, it was time to add in our dining chairs, and I also love these chairs. They're super comfortable and they look a lot more expensive than they are, and I like how the black ties in with the light fixture that we have, and because we have a lot of 90-degree angles in this space, it's nice to break that up visually with the curved shape of the chairs. And because this is the wall that your eye is naturally drawn to when you walk through the door, I just wanted to add some artwork to add a punch of color and break up the space.
Okay, so I figured this art piece was going to be perfect for this space because of its earthy color palette. We have these rusty terracotta tones, which we actually have over in some of our antiques in the living space, so that'll help to tie that together. Same thing with this green, we have that in the pillows, and I just love a calm, muted blue. Having water in this imagery just really helps everything to feel calm and relaxed. And I actually just got this off of Etsy. It's a digital download, and then I cropped it into 3s and got each one printed on its own frame. So that just kind of helped to scale it larger and make it look a little bit more professional. This was a piece that I took from our last house. We had it hanging in our upstairs living space, and I loved the statement that it made up there. So it's nice that we can be able to reuse it in this space and have it coordinate so well with everything. So I'm gonna get to hanging this with the little painter's tape hack, and it's just gonna add a bunch of interest to this wall and tie everything together.
Okay, so for this painter's tape hack, you just take a piece of tape that's the size of your frame, and then you can measure where the center point would be and then mark it on the tape. And this just makes it a lot more seamless when you're hanging your artwork. You can just put the tape where you want the piece to go and know exactly where to put the nail so that the artwork will hang nice and level. And I love how this piece looks in this space. It adds just enough interest in color, but it still gives off that calming, rustic, vintagey feel that I love. And now that we have the artwork up, I wanted to soften the bench space a little bit by adding some pillows for a more cozy feel, just to help frame this window and give it that built-in reading bench look. So I went and I gathered some of my favorites that I already had.
Okay, so here are some of the pillows that I brought from our last place, and as you can see, they're very neutral. Like, we have lots of creams and some blacks, but I wanted some pillows that had touches of the same colors that were in the painting, so maybe some browns and some earthier colors. So I did pick up a couple of new ones on Wayfair, not sponsored. I bought these with my own money. I just was really excited about them because I felt like they kind of had that really natural, organic look to them. So the first one that I got was this really pretty kind of like linen-y patchwork one. I like how this has pattern, but it's still neutral, and it kind of pulls some of those like more tan, neutral kind of brown tones. This linen has some of like those darker chocolate tones kind of woven into it. So I thought this would be really pretty. I also got this one. This one's probably my favorite. It's this really beautiful kind of like woven wool one. It has, again, just a little punch of pattern, but nothing overwhelming. And this has those like chocolate brown tones that I wanted. Very earthy color palette, earthy materials. And when you put all of these together, it's just gonna build that really natural, down to earth look. So I got that one, and then I also really like this one. This is kind of like that old vintage rug textile look, and I actually got this because I used one in our living space that I found at Hobby Lobby a while back that they don't sell anymore, and I was like, I really like how that looks. It's like the perfect punch of pattern, but it still gives off that like well-traveled kind of vintage look. So I was able to find this one, and it has very similar colors that pull from this painting, so I thought that that would be really pretty. So I'm excited about this one too. These ones were just pillow covers. You could buy the insert with it, but I have a bunch of inserts. I'm actually trying to be better about just buying the pillowcase because I have so many inserts. So I'm gonna fill these up, and then we'll get to styling the pillows.
So I was really happy with how the pillows helped to soften this space, and now it was time to style the dining table. So I brought in one of my favorite vases that I found at an antique shop, and it might seem weird to throw in an old distressed piece as opposed to a shiny new one, but I am telling you, worn rustic antiques really help to give your space so much character and just give off that designer look. So I filled the vase with these faux wisteria stems that I found on Etsy, and they are my go-to styling stems. They just look so lifelike and give off that feel like you just went out and cut them from the backyard. And I'll link the stems as well as any products that I can from this video down in the description. So I wanted to have something lower to balance out the height of the vase, and I've mentioned before that when we went to Italy last year, I saw all these beautiful succulent arrangements, and I just love the casual rustic look of them. So I figured this would be a fun thing to style on our table. So I brought this terracotta bowl with us from our last house, and I actually used this as a mini herb garden out on our coffee table outside. So I thought this would be perfect for the succulent bowl, and succulents can be kind of pricey, so I made sure to check the Lowe's clearance rack to see if I could find any on a discount, and I was actually able to find a ton. And it was honestly so hard deciding with all of the different choices that they had, but I ended up just picking a couple of my favorites and heading back home.
Okay, so these are the succulents that I saved from the Lowe's clearance rack, and I've just kind of left them out on my porch because the guy told me they were on the clearance rack because they were overwatered. So I just left them out here for a couple weeks out of the stress of the sun and didn't give them any water. And some definitely fared better than others. Like this paddle plant did not do good. I think that's what it's called, a paddle plant. Didn't do good in any of the arrangements. But this elephant food is so pretty and it's thriving. I love the pretty movement of it. It did good in all of the arrangements. And then also this is so beautiful. I love the color and the texture of this. So that'll add some nice height. So I'm just gonna kind of mix and match and see what we can come up with and just put everything together into a nice little arrangement.
Okay, so I showed you all in my last garden with me video how I just cut this window screen into squares to lay over the drainage holes in my planters so that the soil doesn't spill out, but water can still pass through. And I also bought a potting mix specifically for cactus, and then I filled up my bowl with that. And sometimes when you're making an arrangement in a planter, you'll hear the phrase, use a thriller, a filler, and a spiller. So a statement plant, something to fill around it, and then a plant that spills over the side. And that just kind of makes for a really aesthetic arrangement. So my statement thriller was this really pretty aloe plant, and I believe this is purple haze aloe, but if anyone knows for sure, be sure to let me know in the comments. It just adds a nice pop of height and texture. So next I wanted to fill in around it, so I just used this little blue guy, and I made sure to take off all of the unhealthy leaves at the bottom so that the plant can put more of its energy into new growth and staying healthy. So I just planted him in the little space next to my aloe, and I love the silvery blue hue that both of these plants have. But next I wanted to add my spiller, and I needed to add a little punch of contrast just to have some variation in color within the plants. So I used this elephant bush, and this stuff is super hardy, and I love that it comes out in little sections so that I could build the exact amount of spillage that I wanted. And then from there I basically just filled in with what I had left. There weren't a ton of healthy plants left at this point, so I just kind of picked out the healthiest looking succulents and then filled in the rest of the space with those. And then to add a finished look, I filled in the top with some river rocks that I found at the Home Depot. And that is it, a super simple succulent arrangement that looks like something straight out of the cobblestone streets of Italy. And I really liked how the thriller, filler, and spiller method turned out, so I just popped this right next to the large vase, and honestly, I was impressed. I felt like this was something that you would see in a magazine, and it's also great that it can stand on its own when we have guests and I need to remove the taller vase so that people can see each other. And my plan is just to rotate this between our dining table and our outdoor coffee table so that it can get the light that it needs. So this is how the space looked before we started decorating, and this is what it looks like now. I'm super happy with how this all turned out. I love the natural color palette that we used with the earthy textiles and a little bit of pattern, and just the overall rustic feel that this space has. I love that we were able to incorporate a mix of real and faux greenery, and I'm also really happy with how the dining room and living room coordinate with each other, but they still feel like their own separate spaces. Perfect for hosting a game night, family dinners, or just having a relaxing space to work or read a book.
All right, everyone, that about wraps up this dining room makeover. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and be sure that you're subscribed if you want to see similar content because I have a lot more makeovers coming, so you don't want to miss those. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you're notified when those come out. And I just want to thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you found some value or inspiration in it, and I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!